Imagine an industry at its absolute peak, celebrating a record 100,000 tons, only to watch it all vanish in a single brutal season. Morocco's 2025-2026 campaign wasn't just a minor dip, it was a perfect storm of fire and water that sent shock waves through the global market. From heat waves that scorched half the crop before harvest to floods that paralyzed the ports, we are dissecting the true anatomy of a setback. Don't go anywhere as we uncover how Moroccan avocado producers are fighting to turn this crisis into a legendary comeback through pure resilience.
Morocco's avocado industry has been on this incredible tear, just exploding onto the world stage. But this last season, whoa, it was a brutal reality check. We're talking a story of wild weather and intense market pressure that really pushed everyone to the brink. So let's get into it and figure out exactly what went down.
Morocco's 2025/2026 avocado season was supposed to be another victory lap. Instead, it turned into an absolute disaster. Today, we're going to break down exactly what happened, the perfect storm of weather, logistics, and market chaos that led to a jaw-dropping drop in exports. To really get what went wrong, you have to see it as a tale of two seasons. I mean, they couldn't be more different. The 2024/2025 season, that was the dream. Great weather, easy shipping, everybody wanted Moroccan avocados. But the very next year, it was a complete nightmare. A perfect storm where literally everything that could go wrong did.
So, to really get a handle on how rough this season was, we got to rewind just 1 year. The 2024-2025 season was, an absolute blockbuster. For the first time ever, Morocco shipped out over 100,000 tons of avocados. That was a massive, all-time record, and it really cemented their spot as a global powerhouse. And then, this season happened. The number dropped all the way down to just 58,000 tons. Do the math. That's a fall of nearly 42% from that record high. This wasn't just a little dip, It was like falling off a cliff. And that single number, 58,000 tons, that's really the heart of the story we're unpacking today. It just screams that something went seriously wrong.
A number like that sent shockwaves through the entire industry, from the smallest farms to the biggest exporters. A 42% drop in a single year. When you see it on a chart like this, wow, it really hits home. You can just see how that record high from the previous season absolutely dwarfs what they managed this time around. It's a really stark picture of the crisis we're about to unpack.
Right, so what does a drop like that actually mean in the real world? Well, for an industry that was riding so high with all this incredible momentum, this wasn't just a bad year. No way. It was a massive shock to the entire system. And look, it's not just me saying this. The industry leaders themselves are calling it a major setback. And that phrase, that's really important because this isn't just Morocco's problem, right? It's a huge disruption for the entire global supply chain that counts on them for avocados. When a major player like that takes a hit this big, well, everybody feels those ripples. Okay, so the big question is why? Why did this happen? Well, the main culprit here was Mother Nature. The climate delivered this just devastating 1-2 punch that basically bookended the whole season. It hit the growers right at the start and then came back for another blow right at the very end. So here's how it played out. First, even before the season technically kicked off, these insane heat waves just scorched the avocado groves. And we're not talking about a couple of warm days. This was serious, severe heat that caused huge losses from the get-go. Then, in this kind of cruel twist of fate, just when everyone was trying to save what they could, the end of the season brought floods and powerful winds that just wiped out a lot of what was left. And this really puts the scale of that first hit into perspective. Just that preseason heat wave, it wiped out 50% of the entire expected crop. Can you imagine losing half of your inventory before you even open for business? That's exactly the situation these Moroccan growers were staring at.
So before the season had even properly started, half of the year's potential was just gone. And the crazy thing is, even when some of the fruit looked okay on the outside, the damage was already done. The growers in the northern parts of the country, which is really the heart of Morocco's avocado industry, they got hit the absolute hardest. Now for part 3. So you'd think things couldn't get any worse, right? Well, what happened next was a total breakdown in logistics. The fruit that actually made it through the heat and the floods was now in danger of being lost for completely different reasons.
But here's the thing. The bad weather wasn't the only problem. It was like the trigger for this perfect storm of issues. So you've got the crop damage, right? On top of that, the weather forced ports to close, which created these logistical nightmares. That meant transport delays, which hurts the quality of the fruit you do manage to ship. And then, to make everything even worse, the European market was already flooded with avocados from other places. The whole economic game just got turned upside down.
Just try to picture it. You've managed to save a small harvest of precious avocados, but you literally can't ship them anywhere. Storms shut down the ports, and there weren't enough trucks or containers to go around. So this harvested fruit just sat there, piling up in warehouses, at huge risk of spoiling before it could even get to market.
So, you put it all together, you've got very little supply at home, but really complicated, tough conditions overseas. This created this intense market squeeze. It turned what was already a brutal growing season into a flat-out economic war zone for the exporters.
And this is really the key to understanding the whole mess. This wasn't just a farming problem. The weather destroyed the crop, and what little was left got stuck in a trap. A broken supply chain on one side, and on the other, a European market that was already flooded with cheaper fruit from other places. It was a crisis hitting from every possible angle.
And the Moroccan Avocado Association basically said it themselves. The simple lack of fruit made the whole export campaign very difficult and unusual. Now, normally you'd think, hey, low supply, that means prices go up, right? But no, the situation was way more complicated than that. And this is where you can really see the economic tug-of-war. Check this out. Back home in Morocco, because there were so few avocados, the local prices shot way up. But in Europe, their main market, there was a glut of avocados from other places, which was pushing prices down. So you've got this impossible tension, right? Farmers at home need high prices just to survive, but the exporters can't get those prices abroad. It's a classic catch-22.
So what happens when you're stuck in that kind of price war? Something pretty wild, actually. There were literally times during the season when the numbers made so little sense and things got so tense that farmers just stopped. They stopped harvesting. The entire supply chain just ground to a halt.
Industry folks are now calling this season an extreme stress test, and that's exactly what it was. Every single link in the chain, from the farm to the truck to the port to the final grocery store, was pushed to its absolute breaking point. It was a painful process, but it uncovered some really critical weaknesses that had to be addressed.
So after a season like that, we're talking climate disasters, market chaos, the whole industry's kind of left picking up the pieces, trying to figure out what just happened. And maybe more importantly, what happens next? You have to wonder, was this just a total fluke?
I think it just says it all. He's very blunt. As exporters, we didn't fare well this season. All we can do now is hope that this season was an exception. You can really hear it in his voice, right? That honest admission that things went badly and just this desperate hope that it was a one-off thing, not, the new normal.
But even with all these massive challenges, the industry didn't just throw in the towel. Not at all. Exporters really buckled down and did their best to honor their commitments to their buyers around the world. They were fighting to protect their reputation and really just hoping to get back to that incredible momentum they'd built up over the past few years.
But after all that doom and gloom, let's look forward. This is our final section, the roadmap to recovery. This is where the story pivots from crisis to opportunity, and we get to see how the industry is turning this disaster into a chance to build a stronger future. So they're tackling this head-on in three main ways. To fight back against the crazy weather, they're bringing in better irrigation and early warning systems. To fix the supply chain, they're investing in port infrastructure and digital tracking. And super importantly, to avoid getting squeezed again, they're looking for new customers in places like the Middle East and Asia, so they're not so dependent on Europe. And this whole recovery effort is about way more than just fixing technical problems. From the groves where the fruit is grown to their global brand, the entire industry is doubling down on the quality and reliability that made them famous in the first place. The mission now is to rebuild that momentum they worked so hard to create. When you kind of zoom out, this whole story isn't just about Morocco or avocados. It's a huge cautionary tale for anyone in agriculture anywhere in the world. It's a screaming signal that in the unpredictable world we live in now, being resilient isn't a nice to have, it's an absolute must. And for us as consumers, it's a powerful reminder of the incredible, complicated, and often risky journey our food takes just to get to us. Behind every piece of fruit is a long chain of hard work, big risks, and a whole lot of resilience. So I'll just leave you with this thought. Morocco's avocado industry went through this brutal stress test, and it's fighting its way back. It really makes you wonder, in a world where these kinds of shocks are only going to get more common, just how resilient is the food that makes it to your table?
And really, that's what this all boils down to. It leaves us with a huge question. What happened in Morocco this season is a powerful, very specific story. But is it an isolated one? Or is this story, with its extreme weather, its supply chain chaos, its market madness, is this a sobering preview of what's to come for farming all over the globe as our climate keeps changing? It's definitely something to think about.